Okay, welcome, welcome. I'm Renee Rowe, intuitive counselor and teacher. And today I'm really excited about this intuitive topic today, connecting with your guides. So that's what we'll be talking about and exploring today. And I'll just share a little bit just about me and my experience with connecting with guides, because a lot of the information shared today with you will be just from my personal experience of what I've witnessed. So for me, you can think of me as a born intuitive, being born with my intuitive gifts. And my earliest memory of that connection with spirit was around 2 years old. And in my family lineage, there are a lot of people that are intuitive. So it was something from a young age that I continued to allow grow and flourish instead of kind of blocking that access off, because I didn't know that it was something that was not normal or weird. So I just let it kind of grow and flourish. And so here today, I get to open up and kind of share about the spirit realm, this world of spirit with you. So thank you for being here and creating this safe space for me to share my intuitive self with all of you. So I really appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. So connecting with your guides. So first, I just want to talk a little bit about this realm of spirit, the spirit world. So I want you to think of it as just another dimension that is coexisting with us, right? It exists alongside with us, right? With our kind of material, physical reality. And it is populated by these non-physical beings or spirits. And it is present and accessible at all times. So for us, as we're kind of living our daily lives, it would be a matter of shifting our perspective, or shifting and opening up to be more receptive to that realm, and we'll be able to access that information. So it is accessible at all times, but you'll probably notice that there's just a shift that happens within us that opens up that access to communicate, to connect. And so if you think about our daily lives, right, this matter is more dense and tangible to our usual senses. When you're opening and accessing the spirit realm, that spirit world, you're in this space of great receptivity. For me, I'll even notice maybe an openness and expansion. And you're allowing yourself to be that deep listener. You're very, very receptive. And for me, I personally like to have a balance in both realms. Okay. If you're, if you're kind of too immersed in the spirit realm, for me, I found challenges with that, where it's more challenging to distinguish like who's like physical in their human form and who's maybe a spirit. So for me, I do have a preference of kind of like straddling both worlds and having a balance with that, because otherwise it can be a little bit confusing. So if you notice with practicing this, you're feeling a little too open and receptive within the spirit realm, and things are getting a little confusing and hard to navigate in your day-to-day life, I would just recommend practicing grounding techniques. Okay, so you can welcome in that balance and not get kind of over-consumed by either realm. So when I say grounding yourself, right, that could be a walk in nature, that could be a body connection meditation, or even doing maybe physical exercise where you're bringing that full attention and awareness to your physical body. Okay, that's if you have one of those moments where you're feeling like you're out of your body, things are confusing, and you can't kind of make sense of things that are going on. Okay, so going back to our guides, a spirit guide. So our spirit guides come in to support us in a positive way. Okay. So these are spiritual beings that come in to support us in our lives in a positive way. And one of the laws, which I really love in the spirit realm, and probably why I spend so much time over there, is this law of transparency. We don't have that in our our earth realm, earth plane. So there is this law of transparency. So what does that mean? Is when you establish that communication in with different beings in the spirit realm, they if you ask, like, are you presenting your true self? If they're not, then because of this law of transparency, their true self will step forward. And there will also be this, being very honest, transparent. Okay. Even if the intentions are not positive towards you. Okay. So that's one way just to navigate the realm of spirit in a safe way, knowing that you can always ask. If something's feeling off to you, you can ask what the intentions are, what if they can show their true selves to you, if they're coming from a pure space. So I just want you to know that it's really important to, if anything feels off to you, to ask those questions when you're opening yourself to work more with this realm. So I just want you to keep that in mind. There is a law in the spirit realm of transparency. Okay, so I just want to first just kind of talk about ways that you can begin to, connect with your guides. And for me personally, there would be an aspect of creating that sacred space. Some people might even have a full altar for connecting with their guides. But the main approach to this, the main intention for this, is creating that space for yourself that allows you to go into that shift I was talking about, that shift in perception. And that could be this shift to a sacred space within you. So your intentions do matter. And it's that shift within you where you're allowing yourself to be more open and receptive. There can also be this honoring to your guide that you're working with. And it can be as simple as we're going to go over specific kind of different guides that might come into work with, but you might even have a picture of your guide that you're working with. You might have a statue of them. I love using candles. I think some of you know that. I love using candles. Even today, I have like a candle lit for us. And for me, when I'm lighting that candle, that's me setting that sacred space of opening up and connecting with spirit, with guides. And for you, say if you love flowers, maybe you'll put a flower, and it's like you place that flower in the vase, and you're having that intention while you place that flower in the vase of having this sacred space to be open and receptive to spirit, to guides. And say if you didn't really have that physical sacred space to set for yourself, I remember at a time in my life where I was doing a lot of international travel. So I didn't really have this access to a physical space that could be like my sacred space all the time. And so I just created that within my mental mind. I just had this garden sanctuary that I would go to, and I still have access to that, and I'll go there sometimes. And so if you're someone that doesn't have that physical space, or you travel a lot, you can create, a sanctuary within yourself You kind of close your eyes and you go to that sanctuary. And then in that sanctuary space within you, right, you're being open and receptive to that realm of spirit, being open and receptive to your guides. Okay. So for me, that would be kind of one of the first steps, kind of creating that sacred space for yourself. This could also be maybe a space where you meditate, where you have that deeper connection with yourself. And so after you kind of have your space set up, just want to talk a little bit about just, being in that open, receptive space. There we go. So you've kind of set your sacred space. Some people call it an altar. And you're going to open your being and setting that intention to be open and receptive to spirit or to your guides. Intentions are important. And you're going to be establishing communication. And one of the first kind of ways to approach this is just starting to have awareness of how you receive your own intuitive messages. We all have kind of different intuitive abilities, and it can be unique to us on how we receive those intuitive messages, right? It could be, if you're an empath, you might get an overwhelming feeling sensation, right? So say if you were working with the angelic realm, they have this very loving presence. You might have this strong feeling of warmth and being held and love. That could be the angels communicating to you. So there could be those feeling sensations of the communication with your guide. If you're the clairaudient, right, you might be hearing these words of communication. You might be seeing images. You could also receive intuitive information through just a deep knowingness, through sense. And if you haven't yet, if this is feeling overwhelming or new to you, I did do a previous webinar on Meet the Clairs that goes into more detail on receiving the different ways we receive intuitive information. So I'd welcome you just to visit that if you're really interested in just having that strong established connection with your guides. And that was Meet the Clairs webinar replay that you could revisit. So with receiving this communication, right, it is important to start developing that quiet within yourself, the space where you can tune in to that deep space of listening. And this could be even just where you start out after you kind of created your altar, your sanctuary, that sacred space for you to connect with spirit, to connect with guides. You can practice. I love placing my hands at my spiritual heart center and just closing my eyes and accessing that quiet place within and opening yourself to just listen. And you would want to approach this in a way where you're being open, receptive, curious, and letting go of any expectation to receive a certain message in a certain way. So you're just there being open, receptive, and listening. And sometimes you're just met with quiet. And I would say just embrace that quiet and then keep practicing. And as you keep practicing, you'll notice that those intuitive messages will come. And I just want to note that it is important for you to feel good and safe in your space, because it can be a vulnerable space for us to be very open and receptive. And if we're not feeling safe in our environment, comfortable in our environment, we may notice that we're feeling like we need to be on guard or protected. You'll notice that if you tune in with your aura around you, it's going to be more close to your body. If you're feeling maybe a little bit guarded or feeling like you're needing to protect yourself, that might not be the best place for you. And being in that really open and receptive space if you're not feeling safe. Okay, so I just want you to, just kind of keep that information in your back pocket. It is important for you to feel safe in your space for being able to be open and receptive. Okay. Okay, so now the fun part, we're going to talk about just different guides. Okay, so with different spiritual guides, spirit guides that come in. For me personally, I've worked with a lot of different guides, and some will come in for a period of time and then kind of leave, and then another guide might come in to support me with whatever I'm going through in my life in that moment. And so I just want you to kind of be aware of that it's different guides can come and go. Oh, sorry, Cece, I missed your question. You were asking, do you mean feeling safe in physical space or in internal space emotionally? You would want to feel safe in your physical space as well as your internal space. So in your physical space, something that can make someone feel unsafe is if they feel like they're going to be interrupted. So it might be, locking your doors or putting a sign outside your door of like that you're doing quiet time, or you might have to communicate to others. So that could be a thing where you feel like you're going to be interrupted. Right, that might make you feel unsafe. When you're going into your inner space, into your sanctuary, it will be a space where within you that should be peaceful. If you notice that when you're trying to go to that space and it's not peaceful, then you're going to want to adjust that. So there will be in that inner space, there should be an element of peacefulness there. And even in that peaceful, safe space within you, there might be emotions to process, but you'll notice that you feel safe feeling and processing those emotions. So that's maybe how you could gauge that. Thanks for your question. Okay, so going back to the guides, we're first going to just talk about animal guides that can come in. So if you're a nature lover, you like to go out, hiking, being outdoors, this could be a really great opportunity to connect with the animal guides. And for the animal guides, you're going to want to pay attention to those who show up repeatedly to you. Another way is to notice any unusual behaviors. One example could be, I remember one time being out in the desert in the hot springs, and it was in the daytime, and this bat kept flying in front of me, which, right, that would be unusual, right? That would be an unusual mannerism of a bat because they're nocturnal. It was very unusual that it was coming and presenting itself in the daytime. So that's what I mean about these unusual behaviors, and paying attention to those unusual behaviors from our animal guides, because that means that they have a message, right? They're communicating to you. They're trying to convey a spirit message to you. And these animals that come to relay these spirit messages to you, you can start observing the qualities that they have. I work closely with the hawk. And so I'm always curious, when I'm going out, like, what are the hawks doing? What is their messages for me? And for the example with the hawk, you'll notice that a lot of times they're flying up high. They're viewing things from this higher perspective, right? Trying to get the bigger picture of things. But then they're very focused, and they're very good hunters, right? And they'll focus, and they'll quickly go to their prey. So that's providing nourishment for themselves. Okay. And these animals that we have a stronger connection with, that are wanting to be our guides, it's really important just to acknowledge, observe, or even research what are their qualities that they have, because those are qualities that there's a reason why they're coming in. That wisdom, the qualities that the animals holds, is coming in to support you in embracing those same qualities in yourself. Right. So with that example of the hawk, of seeing from that higher perspective, and it's that supporting me in developing and embracing that quality of seeing from that higher perspective, the bigger picture in myself. Okay, so those are why these guides are coming in, to support you in embracing those same qualities that they strongly hold in themselves. Okay. So I hope you have some ideas to start gaining awareness of any animal guides you have. And next, I want to talk about the angel guides, the angel guides, the angelic realm. So for me, what I've witnessed with the angels is they can have a very quiet but strong presence. And they do have they have a high frequency, and they do emanate a lot of love, thinking like warmth and love, feeling supported and held. For me personally, it did take me a couple years to adjust to communicating to the angels, because their communication is very high pitched, and it was very uncomfortable for me at first. Just hearing like that, think of a very high pitch, just kind of hearing that. And then after a while, it did take a couple years, I was able to just communicate more in a way that was more comfortable for me, but it took a while to adjust. So I just mentioned that sometimes it does take a little practice to get used to the communication style. Right. So for me, I just had to hear this really high pitched, and I couldn't really understand the words at first, but I just kept with it regularly. And then after a couple of years, now it's very easy for me to communicate with the angels, the angelic realm. But it wasn't at first, and I had to work with that. So just if you're noticing that the angels are coming around, you might first just feel that expansive, loving presence around you, and then if you're wanting to communicate, you may hear kind of these really high pitched frequencies coming through that at first can be a little uncomfortable, and you just have to adjust to those kind of high frequency sounds coming through. One thing that I've noticed when the angels come around is they'll come around a lot. Say you lost a loved one has passed, or just think of a moment in your life where you've been met with a lot of challenge. those moments of growth in our lives. We're met with a lot of challenge, and we're really just needing to be held, need to be supported, be told like, oh, everything's going to be okay. And there's this feeling of unconditional love and gentleness being brought in that kind of gives us a break from the intensity of our emotions, the challenging time we're going through. So the angels will come in a lot to support us in those moments. And I would even recommend, if you are going through one of those moments in your life, to welcome in the angels, to call the angels in, just so you can be held, supported, and loved while you're going through that moment of growth, of challenge. They can also support us. I've also noticed like the angels coming in and supporting with even when people are trying to, they're listening to their guidance, they're on their path, and they're needing support, right? Manifesting, needing support in certain ways. I have seen kind of the angels come in and support with those things, like with whatever you're trying to manifest, whether that's like financial support, a new home, things like that. I have witnessed angels coming in and supporting with manifestation at times as well. But it is really nice to be embraced by that loving presence, especially if you don't have that currently in your life. Kind of like that loving, unconditional loving mama presence. Okay. And again, just whether it's the animal guides, the angel guides, or other guides, notice who you're drawn to. That's your own intuition bringing that connection forth. Okay. So you're just noticing, the maybe different angel, there's different archangels, different angels out there. Just notice who you're drawn to and open up for that communication. Okay. So now I want to talk about the star beings, or you can maybe think of, star beings, the extraterrestrials. For me personally, I approach this communicating with the star beings with a lot of caution. That's just personally for me. I'm not very open. I'm not extremely open and receptive just to communicating to anyone with the star beings. That's just personal to me because I think I've just noticed that there can be a lot of personal agendas associated when the star beings approach me, and that wouldn't go in alignment with kind of my boundaries. So I do recommend, if you're curious about the star beings, to set that boundary of needing them to come from a pure space, for there not to be a personal agenda present. So that's just a strong boundary that I put for working with any star beings, right? That I will not develop a relationship or work with them really in any capacity if there's some kind of personal agenda that's present and they're approaching me with that personal agenda. For those star beings that do have kind of those loving and pure intentions, I do notice that they do support in elevating the consciousness of humanity, maybe with the wisdom, the teachings that come through them that support us with evolving, elevating our consciousness, with humanity. That's one thing that I've noticed a lot with the star beings that have those pure intentions. Okay. And just remember that you do have that power to ask, right? Are your intentions pure? Do you have a personal agenda in approaching me, in communicating with me? And also, if you're feeling like you don't have that ability to have that conversation and receive the responses, then just set your boundaries, communicate your boundaries. Right? Is that you can only communicate with me if you're coming from a space of purity, right? To me, a space of purity is when there's no personal agendas involved. One thing that I've also noticed, which is a little interesting to me, is that I've noticed, just like, think of just these contracts we have, soul contracts, is that a lot of the humans unknowingly have a contract with the extraterrestrials, the star beings, that gives permission for contact. And it's just good to be aware of that, because you can change that contract. I've changed my contract. I'm not open and receptive to all extraterrestrial star beings, right? I have those strong boundaries that, right, if they have any type of personal agenda that they're trying to approach me with, then like it's like I have a boundary there. That's not okay to even come into my space, right? They need to create some distance with me. I don't have any willingness to work with them. So even just think about working with, this is how you keep yourself safe, working with guides, working within the spirit realm. What are your boundaries? What works for you? What doesn't work for you? I think it could be helpful to write that down for yourself, get really clear. That's a way to keep yourself safe working within this realm. Because if you don't, there are things that can happen. Right? Something can attach to you, something can be intrusive, try to enter into your body, or disguise itself as a loving, trusting guide that you're used to working with. And it's disguising itself as your guide and delivering information to you that is not supportive to you and your path, but is for their own personal agenda. Okay? So I'm not trying to scare anyone, but I just want you to be safe navigating this realm, because there are a little bit of those risks, and I want you to feel safe opening yourself to this realm of spirit, to guides, because it is an amazing support, but I want you to be able to do that safely for yourself. One thing that I am constantly asking. So Cece's asking, what is the feeling you have when you've connected to a star being? How do you know? For me, I see them with how they look is very that's how I'll know. They have very interesting looks to them. A lot of times they won't they'll have like the body, the skin will have, it's feeling like silicone based. It'll have kind of this transparent glow look to it. This the skin will look different. But how do I know? Yeah, I keep getting like, probably like the first thing is just like how they look to me, where it's just like, okay, that's a star being, especially with like that silicone translucent type skin, which is very different than like for the angelic realm, that can be really, really kind of light, airy, fluffy, translucent. Let me see other ways where you can tell it's a star being. Trying to see if there's ways in which There can be a knowingness that they're from a far away place. They might even give you a vision of kind of the galaxy. Okay, so if you notice that something kind of communicates like this vision of the stars to you or something, that can be a clue that you're working with the star being. Trying to think of different ways that I can know. There, to me, it's always been really clear, especially with how they look when they're approaching me. Trying to think of other ways. I will pick up on ways to distinguish is that there is this wisdom that they'll carry that feels that's beyond the earth plane. There's a wisdom that's carried beyond the earth plane. So you may notice that there's this wisdom in these teachings that are being shared with you that feel otherworldly. They bring in this really broad perspective. They don't feel so dense or conditioned. There can be an expansiveness and otherworldliness with the wisdom and teachings they have to share. So you might even pay attention to this expansiveness that comes through. You could even notice being in their presence if you've given permission to work with them. A how do I describe it? Like a shifting going on in your energy field, right? Where like it could be supporting you with clearing out and breaking out old energetic frequencies, right? That might be very dense and conditioned. That's happened to me quite a bit where there's shifting going on in my energy field. So with the star beings, so Jacqueline's asking, do the star beings exist under the same law of transparency? They must tell you if you ask. They'll definitely tell you if you ask, but not so straightforward. Okay, they might be a little bit more tricky in their response. Say, for example, you ask and you don't get a response. They just stay quiet and silent. To me, that wouldn't be them being forthcoming and sharing. So it would be a red flag for me. So they wouldn't be as forthcoming, clear and direct in their communication compared to another being. So I would definitely pay attention to if you ask a question, right? Are you coming from a pure space? If they leave or they're staying silent, right? Because those are communications as well. So it can be a little bit trickier because they're not ones sometimes to be very forthcoming, direct, and clear in their communication when you're sensing that something's a little off. Okay, you might just feel their presence or see them leave because it's like, oh, they're kind of figuring out that I'm not coming from a sincere, transparent space. So they might just leave or they may remain silent. So I want those to be red flags to you. Okay. Okay. So I would be cautious working with the star beings just because a lot of times they do come in, whether on their own or their group, they do come in with their own personal agendas that they're wanting to orchestrate through you. So I just want you to proceed with caution, and how you do that is right. Just revisiting again, just checking in with yourself, journaling about it, write about it. What works for you? What doesn't work for you? What are your boundaries? I shared mine with you guys. I don't want to work with any star beings that are approaching me with any personal agenda that they have. So being really clear with those boundaries and communicating those, right? It doesn't matter if you feel like you can't feel the presence or anything like that, you still have that contract. Okay. Yeah. And I do work with the star beings, even though I'm very, very selective. I do work with them, um, especially with just right that they do have a lot of wisdom and teachings that I appreciate. A different perspective than our human consciousness is used to perceiving and looking at the world. So that's what I really appreciate working with the star beings, and they do support me when elevating my frequency. Going, I might just kind of lay there, and they'll um, support with like if I'm feeling really dense in my human conditioning, breaking that up a little bit so I can see beyond that. They'll support with that a lot. Okay. So next, let's talk about ancestors or our loved ones who have transitioned and passed, and they're in their spirit form now. So when a loved one passes and transitions, they a lot of them, there's no absolutes within the realm or the spirit realm, right? I would move away of approaching it with like that, it's a you're there's an openness, a learning, a witnessing. I'm always learning new things, but for the most part what I've witnessed is after someone passes, they will go into what we'll call a life review, and they're taking time with looking at the life they've led. And in the life review, it can allow for a moment of healing, moving beyond and past patterns. Like, say, if somebody in their human living life, they were very, very stubborn and closed off to other people's ideas. They might be looking at that in their life, right? And during the life review, and kind of start kind of like laughing at themselves of like, oh wow, look how stubborn I was, and we're moving beyond that and kind of transcending that stubbornness. Sometimes not though. But so in that life review, after a loved one passes, they do have that opportunity to grow and evolve and see things from a higher perspective. Some embrace that moment of healing and growth, and others don't. Okay. So when we're connecting with our ancestors or with loved ones in spirit, one thing that I would love for you to keep in mind is that they're communicating with you through through kind of their personalities. Okay. So say if you were going through something and you were seeking guidance on a situation, I want you to keep an awareness that if you're communicating with that loved one, they're sharing with you guidance through their perspective, their personality. And I don't want that to get confused with you connecting with source, intuitive guidance. That would be two different things. And sometimes people mix this up. So just think of it as your loved one sitting there with you, right? It's them, it's their personality, and they're giving you insights and sharing with you from their perspective. And and they have gone through a life review. So there can be a little bit of that higher perspective and that wisdom that comes through, if they've chosen to kind of grow, heal, and transcend some of the, the patterns they had in their living form. But still with that, there is going to be that essence of their kind of, when they were in that human physical form, their personality, their perspective, and it's coming to you from that lens. And don't get that confused with intuitive guidance that's coming from source. Okay. That could be two different perspectives and information. So keep that in mind when you're getting advice or insights from loved ones who have transitioned. It is coming from their personalities, from their perspective, not to be confused with intuitive guidance from source. So for me, if I'm working with this, of course, I'm going to sit with my loved one and hear what they have to say, their perspective on how I should move forward with something, or maybe they're trying to give me a message or signal something that I need to pay attention to. I am going to listen to that. But before I even make a choice or an action step and move forward with anything, I'm going to keep their advice kind of in one hand, but I'm also going to check in with my own intuitive guidance and see what's coming through in that regard as well, before kind of moving forward with a choice or decision. Okay. So just keep that in mind, because I've noticed a lot of people will confuse, messages, insights from their loved ones who have passed as intuitive guidance. And those are two different things, different sources that you're accessing information from. Okay, so we're going to move on. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the elemental spirit guides. So you can think of like the fairies and the elves. I've mostly seen the elementals in natural spaces, in the gardens. They can be really playful. They can be tricksters, especially kind of the elves. I would say if you are someone who loves the nature, the plant life, you love to garden, it could be really nice to work with the elemental spirits. They can really create that really magical feeling in the garden, right? Think of those times when you've connected with that childlike wonder and awe and magic, especially right, the fairies and the elves. They love creating that, right, those magical types of environments. For me and the fairies, how do I describe? I wouldn't say we're allies. It's kind of like, okay, you do your thing there, I'll do my thing here, over here. I haven't really worked closely with the fairies. We kind of we have different personalities and how we approach things. So we kind of like are just okay with each other, but it's like, you do your thing over there, I do my thing over here. The fairies, they do like to be doted upon. Like, think of like a princess wanting to be doted upon. They love if you build like little, fairy gardens, specific flowers for them, little fairy houses, right, where they can dance around and be playful and bring that magic into your garden, into your spaces. Okay. They can be they I would say that they can help if you're feeling really serious, right? Bring in that, like, think of going out and just being free and frolicking in nature, and or skipping and bringing in that playfulness. They can be supportive to that. They have a little, I don't want to upset them. They didn't want me to relate them as cats, but I'm going to do it anyways. If you've been around cats at all, you know how they're really good at setting boundaries, Like if you go and you pet the cat and it doesn't want to be pet, it's like, meow, right? Cats are so good at setting boundaries and communicating boundaries with you. And I would say that the fairies, they have that same kind of sass to them. If you do something that they don't really like, you're going to know about it. You're going to hear about it. You're going to know about it. They're going to be very communicative and vocal about that if you do something that they don't like. Okay. They don't like to be related to as cats, but that's the best way I know how to kind of show that they're really good at communicating those boundaries. Say if they feel like you're intruding in their natural space or their garden in a way that they're not liking, maybe they work with the bees and have them sting you or something, right? Setting that little sassy boundary with you. Okay. And let's see what else. The thing that I noticed the most, right, is just like that sense of childlike awe, wonder, things feeling magical, right? The fairies and elves can bring that in. The elves can be little bits um of tricksters. I still will have them working in my garden, especially just creating really great soil or something like that, but they're just like jokesters, tricksters. I wouldn't trust, like, they had a message for you or something of like I wouldn't trust any like profound guided message from them. If you see them around, it might just be that reminder of don't take life seriously, be playful, be lighthearted, have fun. Okay. But I really do love having them in the garden, and just that feeling of, right, the childlike wonder and awe and magic that they bring, even though, like, for me, I don't have a personality match with the fairies. Oh, love that, Jacqueline. Sorry, she commented on when we were talking about the our ancestors, that she'll notice that sometimes the ancestors will deliver a message from kind of a fear space, right? So that would be like their personality compared to intuitive guidance, right? Being very not from a fear story space, right? Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. That's a really good way um, to navigate and be aware of, right? It's coming from that ancestor's personality, and it can be from a space of fear instead of coming from that space of trust. Okay, so let's move on. We're talk about the gods and the goddesses. For this, there's so many different like gods and goddesses. I want you to think of like I personally like working with Kuan Yin. She's, to me, symbolizes that goddess of compassion. For me, with the work I do, with I have that gift of sight, seeing the inner workings of things. I have to see a lot of darkness in the world and hold that center and that compassion. So I work with the Kuan Yin a lot, right? That goddess, because she's that support and that reminder to me in every moment of being in that space of compassion with whatever I am witnessing, observing, and seeing. Okay. So with the, like, you could think of Isis, there's different like Hindu deities, and I would just recommend, right, just paying attention to which of those gods or goddesses that you are drawn to. Okay. Okay. Bye, Esperanza. And I'll let you know where to find the recording. Okay. I'll send it to you. Yep. Okay. So with the gods and goddesses, right, just being really open, you could even research online, looking at different pictures, noticing who you're drawn to. And after you notice who you're drawn to, oh, thank you, Deborah. After you notice who you're drawn to, you can research and look up what are these qualities that this god or goddess has. What are these qualities that they have? Like in the example that I, shared with you, I work with Kuan Yin a lot, right? To me, she symbolizes that compassion. So I work with her closely so I can embody that compassion as well. So you're looking at what are these qualities that they have? Because if you're intuitively drawn to them, they're coming in to work with you, to support you, and embracing those same qualities within yourself. So they're going to be supporting you and bringing these to you. One way that's really easy to first establish communication with the gods or goddesses or any other guides that you're wanting to work with is the oracle cards. So like I have like the angel cards here, for example. Like if you wanted to work with the angels, that could be a really good first step to take, right? Just getting an oracle deck of maybe the god or goddess that you're wanting to work with, and seeing what messages come through the oracle cards. That could be a really great first step to establishing that foundation, that way of communicating and receiving the messages. Okay. And then, the other guides that you may be called to working with, different kind of like ascended masters, which can kind of be the gods or goddesses as well. And again, it's just which ones are you drawn to? Okay. Which ones do you feel this connection with? Research about them, get to know them. What do they embody? Because what you'll notice is that they're starting to come in because they want to support you to embody, right, those same attributes, to support you in your growth and healing, to embody those attributes as well. Okay. Right. So with ascended masters, they might be in kind of a spirit form, but at times they do come back and incarnate as human, and maybe do acts through humans that you'll notice an impact on your life, right? In a positive way. Okay. So I just want to briefly just kind of recap what we went through. Lots of information here. So congratulations for just being here and kind of taking all of this in, right? So you're first, right, creating kind of that sacred space. So you kind of know what guide you're wanting to work with, and creating that sacred space. It could be you light a candle, you have a picture of the animal guide, the god, the goddess, whoever you're wanting to work with. And you're opening yourself to be receptive, to listen. You might have a oracle card deck, like animal spirit, god and goddesses oracle card deck, right? Or whoever specifically you're wanting to work with, if you want to receive messages in that way. Or you can just use your intuitive gifts to receive those messages from your guides. And we did kind of go over a little bit of just how different types of guides can support you, the perspective they're coming from. So that's always good to have in mind. And of course, I want you to be safe opening yourself to these guides. So it's really important, even if it's a guide that you've been working with for years and feel really safe and comfortable with, that you're still checking in of asking, are you your true self? Are you a divine source of unconditional love? And the reason for that is because different entities can come into disguise as your guide because they just have some kind of personal agenda of orchestrating through you. Okay. So I do it all the time. I ask, are you a divine source of unconditional love? So Cece is asking that she may have a choice to which guides that you work with. And yes, you do. You do. Different guides come in when you're meditating, right? Different guides come in for me when I'm meditating. Do I work with all of those guides? No, I don't. Sometimes I may choose to work with the guide that comes in, and at times I might set a boundary that no, I'm not wanting to work with them, or maybe I want to work with them at a different time. Okay. Yeah, but when you open yourself to this realm, there's going to be all kinds of things wanting to come in and work with you, and you can choose who you want to work with. And it is good to just be clear again about what works for you, what doesn't, what are your boundaries. If you're not feeling like you want to work with the guide, you don't have to work with them. But one thing is the other thing to think about too, right? If you're drawn to a guide, to work with that guide, there is a connection. There's an unknowingly a connection that's already there. Okay, because you're drawn to them, and it's just you kind of listening and picking up on it, that intuitive guidance that's coming through of why, being drawn to something. Okay. So it's not that you're just randomly choosing like, oh, I'm going to work with that guy, right? There's already kind of that connection present that you're bringing awareness to when you're drawn to a specific guide, but you choose. Okay. We don't want to take that human free will choice away from you. You don't have to work with all those guides that come in to work with you. Okay. Okay, and just checking in if there's any other questions before we go. So Cece's asking, why work with a guide if I have direct source guidance? So yeah, I love that question. For me, I guess for me, I love to be present. I love to witness. I love to learn. And I do enjoy learning from different perspectives. Okay. And I guess for me, that's why I might stay open to working with different guides at different times, because they might bring in a wisdom that doesn't come from directly connecting with source. They might bring in a perspective, a wisdom that was unknowingly, like that I didn't know before. And it touches my life in a positive way. Yeah, but I would say for the most part, right? I like for the most part, I'll connect with source, but then I might have these other guides that come in a specific moment, right? Like think of the angelic realm. You're going through a hard time. You just need to be held. You need love. You need gentleness. And you're just wanting to feel that warm fuzziness for a moment, because that might be what you need to keep on going, right? Just tuning in with divine source and receiving messages isn't going to give you that loving, warm embrace, right? It's something else that you're needing in that moment to support you in your path. Yeah. Yeah. Love that question. Okay. Any other questions before we go? Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really love sharing time with all of you. Aw, thank you. Thank you.